majority of the times you're actually losing or you're not winning. That can be quite demotivating for an individual, but that's really what, in my opinion, separates athletes from people who haven't, played sport at any level. For a lot of athletes, your sense of purpose is not tied to who you are as an individual. It's tied to the sport or your career and how well you do. There is a common notion that with golf, typically one, that it's an old man's sport. Typically you play it when you're retired, all of that. For anyone who says that, I know that you really haven't played the sport, because it's a lot tougher than it actually comes across.
Today on the Expressions podcast, we are joined by Anisha, CEO of LiveLoveLaugh, the foundation started by Deepika Padukone to bring hope to those struggling with stress, anxiety, and depression. In this conversation, Anisha shares how the disciplines of sport, structured routines, emotional regulation, and inner clarity continue to ground her work in mental health. From caregiving for a loved one to leading one of India's most impactful mental health organizations, her journey is both personal and powerful. We explore how rural stories reveal universal truths and how traditional Indian practices like yoga and meditation can sit alongside Western therapy. You'll hear why Anisha believes listening is one of the most radical acts of care and why no life should be lost to mental illness.
Anisha, hi. Super excited, super grateful that you came here. Welcome to the Expressions. I was looking you up for my research and I was just drawn by your simplicity, by your humility, and I'm genuinely curious to get to know you more. So let's start.
Sure.
As someone who grew up in a family involved with sports, were you pressurized to fit into it, or was it just natural? Did it come naturally to you?
I think it came naturally, but also by chance, in the sense that I was always an active child and loved playing, outdoors. I also grew up in a generation which didn't have devices. So you were, the only thing you did for entertainment was sort of go out and play outdoors. Apart from that, I think the big shift happened when I changed schools and I moved to a school that encouraged a lot of sports. So we used to play, 2 hours of sports every day. And that's really where my exposure to playing different sports actually came about. And that's when I realized that as I was trying new sports almost, for the first time, I realized that there was definitely some level of talent because I was able to pick up sports, whatever I was playing, pick it up a lot faster. And there was a little bit of a difference, at least at a school level, compared to, the others that I was playing against.
What were the sports you played?
We had everything, right from like swimming, basketball, football, cricket, hockey. I played hockey, at a decent level. So all of these, one by one we would try, because there was also the system of playing, 2 hours of compulsory, but one that you choose and that you specialize in. And the other sport is actually, the other 1 hour was on a rotational basis. So it encouraged you to actually, try different sports and play different sports. So that is really where my exposure began. And I realized that
you have it in
that
you.
There is something, but more than that, I also really enjoyed it. And maybe part of that was because I was, a little bit better and competitive edge allowed for the enjoyment to come through. So that's really where I felt, that, okay, this is something I really like doing. And of course, with my dad as an example, at a very young age, I knew and realized that this, if you really like something like this, then you can also make a career out of it. So that support system, really helped.
Yeah. And how did you keep away from the public eye, especially when you come from a family full of stars?
So definitely what helps is living in a city like Bangalore, where, it's just the simplicity of the city that allows for it. I don't know if it would have been the same if, for example, we lived in Mumbai or certain parts of Mumbai. So that really helps. Outside of that, I think it's just also just the way that my parents have brought us up. They've always, in a sense, separated the achievement or professional achievement aspect of things from home life and who we are as people. So that's a little bit ingrained. And apart from that, I think there are at least for my mom and dad and myself, when we live here, I did already mention, of course, Bangalore helps, but we also try and ensure that we're as, sort of normal as possible. not that we're trying to make
Yeah.
the effort, it just comes naturally to us, and that's the way we like and prefer it. So I think that's, some of the things that we do.
Yeah, but that's hard, in this world
Yeah.
where everyone's hounding you
Yeah,
and
yeah.
paparazzi.
Yeah.
So hats off.
I mean, my dad, for example, is not on social media
Yeah.
on any platform whatsoever.
Oh.
So, that's just his choice, and
Yeah.
he prefers it that way. So I think each one of us have arrived at things that really work
Works,
for us.
yeah.
It's almost like there are a little bit of like, I wouldn't say two lives, but very different lives. So when we're here in Bangalore doing our thing, going to work regularly in our routine, all of that, there's one aspect. And then there's the other aspect of things when we're, say, in Bombay or when we're traveling with family, then, things are very different. So.
Yeah. A lot comes from our parents, I
Yeah.
think. So what do you think are the gifts and gaps from your mom and dad? And who are you more like, your mother or father?
Honestly, I know it's going to sound like a cliched answer, but think that I'm a mix of both.
Okay.
And I'd like to believe that I'm a good mix of both. I'm someone who's always believed in sort of, learning or imbibing good things from people around me and the people that I know. And both of them obviously have their strengths.
Yeah.
So from my dad's side, of course, number one, I'd say probably his genes have helped. And, that helps with a lot of people saying, how do you stay fit? And I attribute a lot of that to the genes. So, I mean, that's on a lighter note, of course. But outside of that, I think what I really appreciate about him is, his simplicity after having, professionally achieved so much. Even today, sometimes if I sit with him and I'm having a conversation, very nonchalantly, he will drop, some kind of a line or sentence. If we're, for example, talking about badminton, and he'll say, yeah, at that time in 1980 when I was world number one. And he just says it so casually, like it's nothing. So I think that's something that I really admire about him. Very unaffected by, what he's achieved. And it's almost like, that's great, I've achieved certain things, but doesn't really impact me in any other way.
Yeah.
And from my mom, I think what I really admire or appreciate about her is her ability to just sort of keep all of us grounded and together. So she's, in my opinion, she's sort of the backbone of the family and the reason why we are all able to, be the way we are, achieve, go out there and do the things that we do. And that's, similar in a lot of families, because she's, typically always in the background and, prefers to stay out of the limelight. She doesn't, I think, get enough of the credit. But yeah, I like to believe that I'm, a little bit of both.
Yeah. Any core memories or experiences from childhood with family that you fondly remember?
So many. I mean, we're a fairly close-knit family, and like I said earlier as well, growing up, we were just like any other family. So there are, trips that we've taken. We go, for example, we go every year to Tirupati, to the temple. So we always, used to drive and make a trip out of that. So many fond memories of that. Bangalore, of course, was a completely, slightly different city back in the day in the 90s. So there was a lot of fond memories there. So I'd say, I mean, there are a lot, but too many to sort of choose from, but.
I can relate to Tirupati. I used to do that. So how is it growing up in Bangalore? Do you have any secret place of escape or, in Bangalore close by where you like to go often?
My father's side of the family has, all been in and around Malleshwaram. So for me, that's one is nostalgia, even when I go there now. And secondly, his ancestral home or the home that he grew up in is still in Malleshwaram and still, more or less intact in terms of the way that he grew up. So whenever I visit there, it's for me goes back not just to my own childhood, but it's a way for me to connect with his childhood, and that's really special. And so anything in and around Malleshwaram is very, very nostalgic and comforting for me, at least. Yeah.
So is it like a heritage home that?
I mean, it's a regular home, honestly.
Okay.
He honestly didn't have a lot when he was growing up, and he's obviously made a career and a name for himself. So the area in Malleshwaram has his home. It has. We were speaking about the place where he started to play badminton, which was actually a marriage hall. It's not a big fancy club like you have today. He didn't have all of the facilities that you do today, that athletes have access to today. So all of those, things fortunately are still intact and still the way they are.
Oh, lovely.
So, whenever I sort of go around there, and of course the eateries and things like that. So.
People say that golf is like a expensive, financially sound sport. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not something that I'm, proud of. I wish and hope that it changes, but absolutely, it's not really one of the most accessible sports out there. Definitely not in India. Getting access to a golf club, typically requires membership of a club where most people don't have that access, and so there are very, very few people actually playing the sport. And I'm just talking about being able to be introduced to the sport. Once you're introduced, then there's the whole aspect of the cost of being able to play it, and if you're playing it competitively, then traveling and all of those things. So it's absolutely expensive. The federation and other people have tried to make it a little bit more accessible. There are a couple of foundations that run by ex-golfers, current golfers or ex-golfers, or people who are passionate about golf, who are trying to do certain things, and they are making a difference, but obviously not at a very large scale yet. It's still it's a sport that very few people can afford and can play. Yeah.
And why did you pursue golf? Is there any reason? When did you fall in love with the sport?
I actually I joined my father when he was taking membership at one of the golf clubs in the city. So I tagged along with him, and I was about 12 years old. And that was the age, like I spoke about, that was the age where I was trying and playing many different sports. So I think by around the age of 10, I knew that I wanted to be, career-wise, I wanted to be an athlete.
Okay.
But I said I'll give myself another few years to decide which sport I actually want to play and which sport I'm truly, really very passionate about. And I was playing cricket at that time. I represented Karnataka for the state. So I was, very seriously into cricket and really contemplating a career in that. And then coincidentally, joined my father and went to the golf course, and something just clicked. I mean, from the very first time that I went there, I usually say this to people that with golf, you will either have people who are absolutely addicted to it or who just completely despise or hate it. There is usually no in between or middle ground. You don't have someone who's like, it's an okay sport, right? So I was on that end of the spectrum where I completely fell in love with it. And I think it's just something about it just kept drawing me back. Okay. And at that stage, I didn't, start with the intention of competing. I wanted to just go and learn it and see how, what it was about. I was, getting more and more curious about various aspects of the game. And that's when my dad said, why don't you enroll for some classes? And I started enjoying the coaching and the classes. And I started playing on the golf course and I started enjoying that. So I think one thing led to another. And 2-3 years into playing golf, I said, okay, this is, had a chat with my dad. And I said, this is probably something that I want to do as a career. And of course, the backing and the support was there, which was very crucial and important. So that's really my journey of how I got into golf.
So you went for all these South India tours? And
So I started off at the junior level, playing the South Zone Junior Tour.
Okay.
Bangalore, Chennai, Mysore, Coorg, Ooty. These are all then. And when you play junior golf, you have to carry your own bag for the entire tournament. You don't, typically don't get access to caddies. So
you don't, is it?
At least not when I was playing. I don't know if the rules have changed now, but usually junior golf is meant to help you be independent and train you. So what happens when a caddy is there is sometimes you can get, dependent on the caddy, and then they start helping you and guiding your game. So the thinking behind this is really, and it's a worldwide rule. I mean, it's not just in India. So we would, travel, we would play, and it would also be scheduled around our summer vacations or, Dasara breaks and things like that. So this was primarily the South Zone tour. So I played a couple of years on that, and then when I was about 15 or 16, the minute I finished my board exams is when I decided to start playing at the national level. And that's when I played my first tournament on the national circuit.
Lovely. And I'm impressed that at the age of 10, you thought of taking a sport as a career, So not many people in that
in hindsight, I'm pretty amazed myself. But but I have heard this a lot from, we ran a podcast called
Lecture
lecture series Unplugged. And I think Robin Uthappa was also mentioning this, that, he was around, he was playing cricket and he started for fun, and then he knew pretty early on that this is what he wanted to do. So I don't know if there's a connection there, but I knew very early on that I wanted to compete.
And what do you think are the fitness requirement for golf? I mean, you have to swing your arms. So is there any particular regimen that you followed when you were pursuing this sport?
Yeah, of course. I mean, see, I'm not a fitness expert, right? But just from my own experience, there is a common notion that with golf, typically that it's an old man's sport. Typically you play it when you're retired, all of that. For anyone who says that, I know that you really haven't played the sport, because it's a lot tougher than it actually comes across. So once you actually play it, you realize that I think just to be able to explain it is, the difference between golf and certain other sports is there are a lot of other sports that are reactive sports, like any of the racket sports or even, cricket, or you're reacting to a ball that is in motion. With golf, the challenging part is there's a stationary ball. You need to hit that a certain distance, a certain trajectory, high, low, a certain direction. So there's something called shaping, where you hit it, purposely hit it left to right or right to left. So there's all of these, combination of factors. And apart from that, there's also it's outdoor, right? So there's the wind, it can be raining. And in golf, you don't stop when it rains, right? Unless there's a threat of thunder or lightning. What you really need in terms of the strength is literally your entire body has to be strong. But a lot of that actually comes from the ground up, or from your legs, because that's where the pivotal sort of motion has to come in. And just like any other sport, you need to have a very strong core. It can lead to a lot of back injuries, a lot of elbow injuries. There's something called golf elbow, which is sort of the opposite of tennis elbow. Club members who are above a certain age, they'll come in with a strapping on their knees or their elbows. And that's largely because they haven't developed the muscles that are required for golf. So it's a very, very physically intensive sport on the body. In fact, when I was playing, I remember reading an article on how the golf swing is probably the second most debilitating for the body. And then the first is actually the cricket bowling action. And just given the number of injuries that, bowlers face, this is also very, very tough on the body. So I think fitness plays a very, very crucial and important role, not just from the perspective of being strong, but working to ensure that you don't get injured. So a lot of what I did in my workouts was a combination of these two things. Now, I'm not a very sort of, not born with a lot of muscle. So I had to put on a lot of muscle to be able to, hit the ball longer and let's say last 3 or 4 rounds of a tournament. But also a lot of that was working on the smaller muscle groups so that you're not getting injured and ensuring that your posture remains good and your core remains strong and your lower back doesn't get affected and things like that.
What about golf fashion, yay or nay?
Yeah, one of the most fashionable sports, I think, in my opinion. And there are, of course, a lot of golfers who are international golfers who are at the top of that list. I'm a traditionalist. For example, in cricket, I love test matches versus, ODIs and T20s. So similarly, I think golf retains a certain charm when there is a dress code. I love the fact that you're not showing up in a team sport. Typically, you're wearing a team jersey, or in an individual sport like tennis, you're wearing shorts and you're just wearing a loose T-shirt here or a shirt. Here, there's certain rules that denim is not allowed. Your shirt has to be tucked in. You're not allowed to wear like shorts that are the gym shorts and cycling shorts, that sort of thing. So I think that just allows for the game overall to be, packaged really well. And for me, I felt like, a lot of it is when you're dressed well, you feel good about yourself, and that in a sense helps your confidence as well.
Good point.
By no means was the most fashionable out there, but I'm ensured that it was practical combined with what is true to my own style. But I hope they don't change any rules. I think recently they've just about started allowing on the rival Live Golf Tour, they've started allowing shorts, men to wear shorts and compete, which wasn't allowed earlier. So they are tweaking the rules a little bit, but by and large they're sticking to the original rules. And if you look at back in the day, let's say about 50, 75 years back, with the likes of the greats like Ben Hogan wearing those typical suspenders, and so I think there's a charm to some of that, and I hope that never changes, to be honest.
Did you watch a lot of Tiger Woods or did?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Tiger Woods he's an emotion. I can't even begin to describe the what he's done for the game and the impact that he's had on people like me who started playing, and of course his impact on the game goes way beyond just golf. He's been able to, I think, inspire a lot of people with his what he's been able to do on the field and on the course. Yeah.
And what about any dream golf course? Do you have you been, or do you have any thoughts around it?
Many. The Augusta Masters, for sure. That's in the US, in Augusta, Georgia. The tournament just completed, and this is basically where the 4 majors, right? Every sport has a major similar to tennis. So this is one of the majors, which happens usually in the month of April. Just got over a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's one golf course. It's a very tough course. But I'd love to hopefully play there. And it's the only members only golf course. So you can only sort of play in that tournament if you get an invite from the club. Slightly similar to Wimbledon, right? Wimbledon is also a club concept. So Augusta for sure. There's Pebble Beach in California, which is along the coastline. There's St. Andrews in Scotland, which is like called the home of golf. So yeah.
So I've also heard that athletes, when they give up sports, like when they win, they have everyone. When they do not, when they lose, they have no one around them. And when they give up sports, they definitely go through mental stress, anxiety, a lot of things. Do you have any experience or any stories that you've come across? And do you have any advice or any way how they can tackle this?
And of course, there's 2 parts to it, right? One is when you are you play because you want to win. But I think as an athlete, anyone who's played sport at a competitive level, you've done swimming as well. So you'll know that majority of the times you're actually losing or you're not winning, right? Let me put it that way. So that can be quite demotivating for an individual, but that's really what, in my opinion, separates athletes from people who haven't, played sport at any level, is that you're waking up and striving to be the best version of yourself every single day, knowing that majority of the times you're actually not going to probably achieve it, but you live for those few moments where the victory actually happens. So I think that can be extremely challenging. That's one part. The other part, I think, is, like you mentioned, when an athlete actually, retires. And it's, you spend anywhere between, 10, 15, 20 years of your life, maybe even more, pursuing something day in and day out with such a regimented routine that when you actually stop, A, that routine is lost. B, you lose your sense of purpose. Because for a lot of athletes, your sense of purpose is not tied to who you are as an individual. It's tied to
the sport
or your career and how well you do.
So there's this void, right?
So there's a huge void, and that, I think, leaves a very, very lasting impact on athletes. And we've seen that globally, for example, with Michael Phelps, arguably the greatest athlete of our generation, with over 25 gold medals. You'd think he'd be, in the typical sense, the happiest person around. But when he retired, he actually experienced very severe depression, which he's spoken about publicly. And if I'm not mistaken, also, was on the verge of probably taking his own life. So I think that is something that, and of course, closer to home, Abhinav Bindra won his Olympic gold medal and then experienced the lows. So it's almost like, the highs followed by the lows. So it is probably becoming a little bit more, people are talking about it. I don't want to say it's becoming common because maybe it was always around, but because of the stigma, people weren't able to talk about it. So I'm glad that people are able to open up, seek help and support, and then be able to share their narratives. And of course, when you have individuals like Michael Phelps or Abhinav Bindra talking about it, it really makes a difference. So the journey of an athlete is not easy, just like any other career. But I think overall, happy that things are getting better and people are able to get that help and support.
So do you think they should also plan alternate career when they do sports?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 2 ways to look at it, right? Because you're so focused and so sort of determined to just achieve what you want to do that your bandwidth is not allowing you to think of a second option because you, in a sense, almost view a second option as a failure. But I think pivoting that thinking for it to, to say that, okay, at some point of time, my career is not going to happen, because obviously as an athlete, you can't work till you're, let's say, 50 or 60, right? So you can't compete at that level. So having backup options is good. If there are federations involved, having training sessions for athletes would be good. So I think there's a lot for athletes as individuals to do, for parents and support system around the athlete, coaches, mentors, to inculcate and start talking about, and then of course for federations as well to take up.
I'd like to ask you, what drew you into mental health advocacy? I mean, and we all know that your sister spoke a lot about it. Did you have your bouts of insecurity also that drew you to this?
My journey into mental health a lot was because of my, because I was a caregiver, I was drawn into being a caregiver.
Okay.
I've always maintained that I always say that I thought I knew enough about mental health. Until I was actually required to be a caregiver, and it caught me off guard, and I realized I didn't know enough, and therefore I was not able to care for, right? So that's really the beginning of my journey, but it wasn't sort of, it's been a journey, it still is a journey. It's not that I know enough about it either. So I got to understand a lot more about mental health from mental health professionals in terms of caregiving. And then I started to understand a little bit more about how can I take care of myself better as an individual, my own mental health. And therefore then, the foundation came along and one thing led to another. And now I have an immense sense of gratitude to be able to help others and hopefully not have them go through the same journey that I went through.
No, and it was heartwarming to see how you were personally involved in where you went to the rural areas, and how was it over there? I mean, what was your experience? Would you like to share any stories?
Sure. So I think the thought process behind that is really just to get a sense of our work. When you do something, you also want to know how it's impacting on the ground, what is working well, most importantly, what is not working well, and what are the things that you need to improve on. I think that's just that typical athlete mindset, right? So a large part of why I go into the field is for these reasons. And of course, to be able to connect with the beneficiaries that we're helping and serving, and understanding from them, what are the things that we can do better, for example. So that's really why I try and do, a few visits every year. Been to a couple of the districts in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Orissa, on rotation basis. And we have a team that goes in on a more frequent basis, but I also try and make that time. I think what strikes me is last year we had been to Orissa, and there was a mother, who's elderly and caring for her son who has mental illness, and her concern of fear. And even though it was such a beautiful moment because I don't speak the local language, having said that, I was still able to understand her emotions, understand what she was feeling, what she was going through. So she was conversing in Oriya. I was trying to, put together, of course, Hindi. So I was communicating back in Hindi. But it was a beautiful moment where, for some reason, we both understood, with gestures, and things like that, we understood what the other person was saying. And she was basically talking about how her son, who's obviously, younger than her, has mental illness, and how she's grateful that he was able to get support, but also her fear of, what will happen to my son when I'm not around. And, he has his wife and his children, but will he be cared for? And we had to sort of assure her that, we will ensure that he's taken care of, and even you aren't sort of going anywhere, so you will also be around to help. We'll help you, we'll help them. So I think that was a really nice moment where we were able to just understand each other. These kind of trips really help us get to the ground reality of what we're doing.
Is there a white coat syndrome around mental health today, do you feel?
Possibly. I think I see it as I think the only good thing from that is that there is, a lot more awareness, and people are becoming more aware about the topic. But apart from that, I think it's important that individuals, understand a little bit more and not necessarily be afraid of professionals. Just like any other illness, there's certain amount of awareness that you can have and sort of help yourself.
Yeah.
But when it reaches a stage or a condition of illness is when you have to, treat it through a professional.
Yeah.
And, finding a good professional is one part of it. And when you do, then it really sort of opens your world and changes changes your life. So I wouldn't say enough, but there are good mental health professionals out there. And for example, our website offers, about 20 helpline numbers where people can get help and support on, as well as over 400 mental health professionals that you can reach out to. So as long as you're reaching out to a qualified person and someone who's good and works for you, I think there's, that's...
And what are your go-to rituals to feel better?
Mine, personally?
Yeah.
So because I work in mental health, I'd say in the last 8-10 years, I prioritize it. It's probably the number one thing, physical and mental health, that I work on and try and ensure that I'm, taking care of. Personally, for me, I've always loved remaining active in some way or the other, being an athlete, of course. So I like to, in some way stay physically fit or active. Basically just movement, right?
Yeah.
Moving, because movement in itself is sort of useful and like therapy. So I think that's really crucial and important. Other than that, honestly, it's going to be a boring answer because it's all of the basics that professionals say, but I've seen the effects of it and how beneficial it can be.
Yeah.
So some form of movement, like I mentioned, sleep is a very important part of my sort of routine and ritual. And when I don't get that desired amount that's good for me, I can see and feel that it, really sort of bothers my health and otherwise. So I think that's another important thing. The food you consume, nutrition, kind of diet you're consuming, which is not to say that I don't enjoy, cheat meals and things like that, but I try and stay, within the gambit of healthy food.
Do you eat before sunset?
No, I'm not that, not that healthy. Start my day a little bit earlier, things like that. And that then allows a few hours in the evening for me time. And for different people, I think that's really important, and probably especially for women or for mothers or for caregivers, to be able to, if possible, factor in some amount of time for themselves. And it could be in various ways and forms, really what works for them.
Yeah.
So I think that's another important piece for me.
Yeah. So talking about when you were playing golf, since you mentioned that, what was your winning strategy for golf when you were playing?
As an athlete, you're just constantly learning, tweaking, improving. The things that are working for you are things that you will continue to do. But then you'll also realize that, there are certain things that are not working, and then you'll try and tweak and change. So I think there's a lot of learning in each time you play, and the fact that you're not winning, right? You learn a lot more from that. Having said that, the times that I have, done well or won have been times where I've been self-confident, extremely self-confident in my own abilities. And I think that is something across any field, no matter how talented you are, if you're not able to have that self-belief, and, all of the best athletes in the world across generations, those who've succeeded have all had that. So I think that's, while it sounds very cliched, it's really just, top of the list. Apart from that, all of the usual things, you have to be extremely determined, you have to be very, very disciplined, follow the routine that works well for you, do the things that work well, and, you develop those over time. So just sticking to some of those, being extremely patient, because nothing comes easy, including in sport. I think these are just some basics.
Tell us about Live, Love, Laugh. Any learnings from your journey? You've completed 10 years?
Yes, I completed 10 years this year. But let me maybe start off by telling you what we do. Live, Love, Laugh was set up as a charitable trust or a foundation back in 2015 as a result of our founder's experience with anxiety and depression. And that experience spurred her to be able to, create a platform or an organization that can help other individuals going through something similar. But with an equal and important focus on caregiving, because with mental health or with any other illness for that matter, caregivers play a very crucial role in the recovery of an individual or a person with mental illness. There are 3 things that we focus on primarily. The first one is awareness and destigmatization. The second one is accessibility, access to credible information, access to mental health resources like I spoke about earlier. And the third part of it is affordability, because whether you live in urban or in rural India, mental health care is still, fairly expensive.
Yeah.
So these are the three sort of, there are multiple challenges within mental health in India, but these are the three things that we are focusing on at the moment.
And how do you promote a good environment at Live, Love, Laugh? How do you instill that hope in people?
I think a lot of it comes from the work that we do. For example, the passion with which we focus and we do our work, and the reason why we exist. And a lot of that comes from our, backstory, and the reason why we were even set up is our core belief as an organization is that no life should be lost due to mental illness. Right from somebody who is, say, wanting to learn a little bit more about the topic, all the way to people who are, extremely, affected by mental illness, get help and support at the right time from the right people, and are able to, understand that journey that they're on. So a lot of that comes from being able to give hope. And so, Live, Love, Laugh Foundation, what we primarily do is to give hope to people experiencing stress, anxiety, and depression. So that forms the core of who we are as individuals, as well as it comes through in the work that we do because of the experience that our founder had. And so everything that we do is to be able to help that person. In a sense, I can summarize it in a way where, the phrase light at the end of the tunnel, because somebody who's going through mental illness, there is for example, a lot of darkness that you, if you have to sort of articulate it. So we strive to or want to be that light at the end of the tunnel and help individuals and people who are really, going through a challenging time.
What's your biggest learning from Dr. Shyam Bhat? I know he's a part of your team and you've done a lot of series with him. So would love to know what you've learned from him.
Sure. So Dr. Shyam Bhat is our chairperson. He's also, psychiatrist. He studied internal medicine and practicing in India now. And I think one of the things that he very passionately talks about, which I had no idea about, but I've learned over time, is integrating the practices of the East with the practices of the West. And by that, what he typically means and talks about is that India and the East has very rich culture and heritage in terms of being able to treat something like mental illness. For example, with yoga, meditation, spirituality, things like that. Whereas in the West, the approach that typically the West follows is a lot more medical in nature, primarily medication. And so there is a great opportunity for India, for probably for the first time, to be able to create a sort of a response to mental illness that is India first. That really opened my eyes. He calls it decolonizing therapy or decolonizing psychiatry. Which exactly, right? And of course, I'm not able to articulate it the way that he would, but I'm always fascinated when he's asked this question, or when we talk about this, and just to learn a little bit more about it. And I genuinely feel, it's a great point, a very valid point, and therefore a lot of what we as an organization also encourage people to do is, yes, get help and support from a professional, and that's if you're struggling, that is the first thing that you should do. But outside of that, there are other sort of things that you can incorporate into your lifestyle that seem to be, beneficial. And that's what he talks about and probably also, proposes through his practice. So like I said, I'm not able to articulate it as well as he does, but it's a very, very fascinating concept for me that I've learned from him.
Thank you for sharing. And who else forms your core team at Live, Love, Laugh? Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So we have, firstly, a board of trustees, which comprises of 3 mental health professionals, Dr. Shyam Bhat, like you mentioned, Dr. Murli Doraiswamy, who's the head of psychiatry at Duke University in the UK, and Anna Chandy, who's been a counselor and therapist, for the last 25, 30 years. So these 3 are mental health professionals. Anna and Dr. Shyam are founding trustees as well. Apart from them, we have Anant Narayanan, who's been, at McKinsey, the head of Myntra, and now at Mensa. and then of course Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, who really needs no introduction. So that forms the board of trustees, who are equally involved and very involved in what we do, but also at the same time allow us as a team to function and gives us our space. So that's the board. And apart from that, we have a wonderful team of people at the foundation that help us think through, strategize, and do the work that we do. Outside of that, I'd say, we're still relatively a small team. We're about 13, 14 people. A large part of that is because from day one, we've always believed in partnering with various organizations and working with people in the ecosystem and in the sector. And so that allows us to be a fairly small team. And for example, in the rural program, we actually currently partner with about 14, 15 grassroots level organizations who have worked in healthcare.
Okay.
They run community mental health programs, they live and reside in the community. So we work with them, we train them, we build their capacity as well. And this is just an example of the rural program. Similarly, for all of the initiatives and everything that we do, we typically prefer to partner. So I think that has allowed us, so in a sense, while they're not part of the core LLL team, all of these people, individuals, organizations are the ones who help us, reach where we've reached and impact the people that we impact. So they also form a very, very crucial and important part of what we do.
Lovely. What were your biggest takeaways from your lecture series with Robin Uthappa, with Sanya Mirza? Would you like to share anything that moved you or impacted you personally?
Sure. So I think, we've done, it's a property called Lecture Series Unplugged. It's hosted by myself and Dr. Shyam, where usually I'm on that chair and I'm asking the questions. The thought process behind that was really just to be able to have more open and honest conversations about mental health with individuals from various fields. And, data and research shows that over 200 million Indians are affected by mental illness. And the three guests that we've had so far, the comedian Danish Seth from Bangalore, and of course anyone from Bangalore will know who he is. And then of course Robin Uthappa and Sanya Mirza as athletes. I think from all three of them, probably my few key takeaways. One is just the journey of resilience that they've all shown, not just mental health wise, even outside of that, to really reach where they have reached in their respective careers. Of course, Sanya and Robin are athletes, but Danish has also, been able to make a name for himself and work his way up and sort of, reach that success that he has. So there are common sort of traits. So while I am actually, interviewing them or asking them questions, there's a great opportunity even for me to be able to learn, from people like this. And I'm, glad that I have that ability to learn from them, to interact with them. So that's one, I think, the resilience. The second thing is probably just the humility. I mean, they're all, put aside what they've achieved, stay grounded and be able to help people and do what they do. And
so 10 years of Live, Love, Laugh. And what do you see yourself now, 10 years down?
Gosh, I feel like we've just sort of scratched the surface, right? I
Really?
mean, we've done a lot. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We've created a lot of impact. We've been able to help a lot of people, save a lot of lives, all of that. But I think just given the scale of the problem, right? When you look at mental illness in India and the number of people who are affected, and if you just sort of zoom out and look at that, I'm not saying we're trying to sort of solve the entire problem, but I just feel like there is so much more that as an organization that we can do. And some of that, will include, of course, the programmatic interventions that we already have. We'll scale and expand on those, hopefully to be able to, reach, thousands or millions of more people. Apart from that, I think there's a great scope to work on policy and advocacy with the right stakeholders, wherein, we work on things that can help not just the current generation, but also future generations. And then, of course, continue to do all of the awareness work that we do. I still think that's very, very critical. We've only been able to, for example, there are X percentage of people that are aware about mental health. There's so many more people that need to become aware about it, need to understand it more as a topic. Basic things like, where do you go for help and support? What is mental health? Starting off with that. Where do you go for help and support? What is actually available? Some of those things from an awareness standpoint. So I think, like I said, there's so much more to do. But largely, if I sort of have to summarize it, it's being able to scale everything that we're doing it at, reaching out to a lot more people, improving the quality of what we do. And then, of course, like I said, the policy advocacy and things like that. Basically, I think just being able to be at that forefront of creating, sort of a landscape shift in mental health, which has sort of started to happen, but still a long way to go.
I've seen that you guys have also worked with children, rural areas. So do you think even you would address teenage and, with social media coming in place, do you think in future there could be areas that you would touch upon where you haven't in the past?
While we don't have an active, say program like we did in the past with a school program, but we do, a very large percentage of our target audience is the youth and is, a young age group.
Okay.
So we do that a lot of it through, the awareness work that we do, for example, the lecture series and things like that you spoke about. And those are just a few. We do campaigns, we do research, we do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Especially the younger generation is really, struggling with this as a challenge. And so there is an opportunity or a potential or a requirement for Live, Love, Laugh, to also focus on this age group as well. Yeah.
You were a member of the World Economic Forum. What was your role there and what were your experiences there? We'd love to hear that.
So the World Economic Forum has something called Global Future Councils, which are councils that are set up across various verticals or various topics. And they chose mental health as one. So I was part of the Global Future Council for Mental Health, where you have individuals who are working in the field of mental health, comprising of primarily, we were a group of, I would say, about 20-25 people from across the world, scientists, researchers, psychiatrists, therapists, people who are working in social work like myself, all coming together with the common aim or goal of trying to sort of, work on things in mental health. And so initially, a lot of it was virtual, so we would connect, virtually. And then we had a meetup in Dubai, which was a sort of a central location for everyone, where I think for me, the learning was that mental health is at a very different place in various countries.
Yeah.
And so a large part of that conversation with the 20-25 people who were there was revolved around mental health and the focus of mental health for the more developed countries, such as the US, Europe, Australia. But some of us who were from countries where mental health is not as developed, I think it required for us to also voice that, while you're talking about, just to give you an example, while you're talking about, AI and chatbots and mental health, and while that's important, we are still at a stage where a lot of individuals, a lot of people in our countries don't understand what is mental health and don't have that access. So while you are focusing on that, some amount of the focus should also be on, some of these aspects and things. So I think that was it was a great learning for me, but also to be able to sort of put forward the views or the position that, let's say, India is at. It was nice to actually be able to interact with people and more than anything learn from, because a lot of them were more experienced and working in different fields. And like I said, scientists and researchers and doing a lot of different things in mental health. So being able to exchange ideas, understand what they're doing, things like that.
And what keeps you grounded amidst chaos?
Something that really helps me actually is breathing. So at times when I'm extremely, my bearings are a little bit all over the place, I find a couple of breathing techniques really help me center myself in that moment. But of course, if it's chaos for a prolonged period of time, then you have to, continue to do the breathing, continue to do various things. But yeah, I think like I spoke about earlier, the things that I do which help me for my mental health, movement and those kind of things are important. And I've seen that when I don't follow that or when I get a little lazy on that is when, it has an impact here. Yeah. So when things are a little bit rough, I try and ensure that I stick to the things that have worked for me in the past and that I've been able to identify are things that work for me. So just ensuring that I do that a little bit more. So if I know, for example, work-wise, let's say, the next 2 or 3 months is going to be extremely hectic and I have these many things to do and a lot of travel, I'll try and make sure that I'm even more, disciplined or regimented about following some of those things.
In your line of work, Is it important to be a good listener?
Yeah, I think in any line of work, it's important to be a good listener, whether you're, irrespective of work. I think, I just feel like in today's day and age, when we are so sort of disconnected already we were speaking about devices and everyone's sort of always in their own space and own world, sometimes all another person needs
is just listen.
It's just to listen.
Yeah.
Listen without judgment, listen without saying anything, listen without giving an opinion. There are times where I feel like sometimes a friend or anybody can reach out to me and all they want to do is just talk, right? And let things out of their system in a way that they want, without being judged, like I said, without me saying, try this, do that. I don't necessarily think they're looking for an opinion. So there's different, obviously, types of listeners, but yeah, I think it's very, very important. And I try to, do that with the people around me and also try and get them to do that with me so that it creates an ecosystem where, if it's friends, for example, that we're there for each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very important.
What is your favorite food that is uniquely Bangalorean?
Benne dosa?
Yeah. And my team really wants me to ask you this. What is your favorite Bangalore language?
Haven't heard it in a while, but Bombat or Sakat is a very, very classic one. And for anyone who doesn't know what it means, RCB is playing right now is Sakat.
Yeah. So it's super.
Yeah, basically.
Is there one golfer from across time, dead or alive, that you would want to take on for a match?
I mean, I'd love to play with Tiger Woods, not to take him on because that's a losing battle. But yeah, I'd be able to learn a lot, pick his brains, understand his process and stuff. So yeah, Tiger Woods for sure.
What OTT show would you recommend right now?
I'd say Adolescence, in a sense, kind of connected to mental health and the work that we do, and gives a great insight into what that age group really is going through globally. And yeah, Adolescence for sure.
And what is your current favorite Punjabi song or just song?
I've been listening to Rishabh Sharma, the sitarist, quite a lot. He's doing his tour and I'm scheduled to go. So there's a song of his called Shiv Kailash, which is very, very pleasing, very comforting. So you talked about, what do you do in a situation of chaos? But that's one song that really helps me, stay calm and grounded. And sometimes I listen to it, for example, even, before getting into bed, and it's really very soothing. I'd say his music is very soothing.
Right. Thank you very much, Anisha. I really enjoyed this chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.